And you know how Steppin with Marcus J live from the Den Legacy Internet Radio. Thank y'all to everyone who has been listening to our show tonight. We appreciate you guys listening to us live on TuneIn, and we appreciate you folks listening to our replays on YouTube. It's because you guys come and listen to our show every single week is how we continue doing this week after week after week. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. We are the flagship show of Legacy Internet Radio, and so we appreciate you guys being here with us as we continue on with the show. We lost our sister Amber, but we thank her and appreciate her for her contribution to the show here tonight. And so we're going to move on and kind of get into a couple other things. And first time in a long time, it's been yours truly, me with my co-host S.Y. Butler. It's just the two of us here in studio tonight. a little Bill Withers over there. And so it's just us. So I'm glad that we had an opportunity to just kind of get into a couple of quick stories before we close out the show at the end of the night here tonight. And so first thing I want to get to, first off, we know that the vote for the Confederate flag coming down from the State House in South Carolina went to a vote today, and it was voted to come down. And so that was the final decision that was made in South Carolina. So there are a lot of folks that are feeling that that is a victory. I am, in fact, one of them. We'll talk a little bit about this here before we move on. You know, there's been a lot of talk about the Confederate flag and what its meaning is. And you have a lot of folks that feel that, you know, the Confederate flag is a symbol of hate. And you have a lot of people who feel that the Confederate flag is a symbol of Southern pride. Depending on where you fall on that discussion will determine how a lot of things go. It appears that we're having issues tonight with the phones. I can hear that it's ringing, and you guys can hear that it's ringing, but I'm pretty sure the caller can't hear us. So we're going to shut the phones down here shortly because I'm pretty sure that this particular caller can't hear us. We'll try, but I'm pretty sure they can't, and there's issues with the phone lines that we'll have to address. But caller, you're not there, are you? Yeah, exactly. So caller, we apologize to everybody that's trying to get in with us tonight, but apparently we're having some major issues with our phone lines, and so the phone lines are officially shut down. I just shut the phone lines down, so if you call us right now, you're going to get nothing but our voicemail. So don't even bother. Just go ahead and listen to us tonight because we got about 45 minutes left in the show, and then we're going to be shutting down anyway. But if you're listening to us and if anything that you want to get in with regards to your comments, if you know us personally, send us text messages. If you want to hit the Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J fan page, the Legacy Internet Radio fan page, those are our public pages. So even if you don't know us personally, you can get us there or hit us up on our Facebook pages or inboxes. There's plenty of ways to get your comments in. Unfortunately, our phone lines are down. We're having issues with them, so we had to just completely shut them off. But one thing that I wanted to get into specifically is a television show that all of us grew up with. Those of us of a certain age grew up with the Dukes of Hazzard. Dukes of Hazzard was a television show that ran on CBS from 1979 to 1985, and it is known as the Duke. They're known as the Duke Boys. Just the good old boys never mean no harm. You know, we all know the song. But for many of us kids growing up, the star of the show was not Bo Luke. It was not Bo Duke or Luke Duke or Daisy Duke for that matter. It was the car. It was the car, and it was called the General Lee, and it had a Confederate flag emblazed across the roof of the car. Now, as a kid, you know, I just didn't know enough historically to offer an opinion, you know, and as an adult, I certainly have developed an opinion about the Confederate flag, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But what I really want to talk about first, that's why, is the fact that the TV station called TVLAND has decided that they are no longer going to run reruns of the Dukes of Hazzard. They pulled it from their schedule. And so you can no longer see the Dukes of Hazzard on TV Land. It's still out there. You can still find it on other areas, CMT, Country Music Channel. You can still, you know, find it there in other places. But TVLAND, which is a pretty big station, you cannot find it there. So I think I properly set it up. What's your thoughts on TVLAND pulling the reruns of the Dukes of Hazzard off of the network?
Well, I'm not sure. What'd they pull it for? You know, did you pull it because now, you know, the flag is coming down? I mean, you ran it before. Why are you not going to run it now? I'd like to know the reasoning behind it. You know, I feel like the diva. I have questions. You know, why are you pulling it down now? I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think it might be just, you know, a little phony. Why would you pull it down now? You've ran it all this time.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, I got a lot of mixed feelings about that. Why now? Because I got into a discussion with, you know, a couple of people in social media. We were talking about why now, and my response to the why, because that question came up. So I'm very happy that you actually asked it, because others asked it as well. And I guess my answer to why now is you have to give credence to when folks wake up and not assume that they were awake in the past, and that's why you didn't talk about it. And here, let me kind of make that, I think that was a little bit convoluted. Let me kind of explain that a little bit better. Basically, when folks wake up, you have to deal with what you have in that moment. If a person is sleeping, and I'm speaking unconsciously, if a person is sleeping, there's nothing that you can do about what their knowledge or their understanding is. But once they wake up, I don't know that I asked the question why you wake up now instead of being pleased that you are finally awake, if you know what I mean.
I don't feel that, though. I don't think that would be it. The person who's in charge of programming or okaying programming says, we are no longer running the Dukes of Hazzard. Why? That to me does not sound like a reason why. I woke up from what? Woke up how? Because?
Well, let's call out the elephant in the room. You got a whole generation of people who have no idea what the Confederate flag is. They don't know the history. And then you also have a lot of people who, let me say it this way. I was 5 in 1979 when the Dukes of Hazzard came out. And it was one of my favorite shows throughout my childhood and into my adulthood. Even when I got older and I knew the history of the Confederate flag, I still like the Dukes of Hazzard. I still like it now. I don't not like the Dukes of Hazzard because they've got a Confederate flag on the, you know, while I have issues with the Confederate flag, which are well documented, I don't have to get into it right now, but I never had, I guess as a child, because I didn't know the history of the Confederate flag when the Dukes of Hazzard became a show that I was fond of, it didn't affect me in that way. And so they slipped it by me, basically. They slipped it by me. And so I understand them wanting to pull it. First of all, I don't agree with them pulling the show. So let me be clear about that. I do not personally, I don't agree with them pulling the show off the air. I think that was knee jerk. I understand why they did it. Don't agree with it. I think the Dukes of Hazzard,
some BS to pull the show.
I think the Dukes of Hazzard should still be on the air right now. First of all, but I understand pulling it because you could potentially desensitize a whole generation of kids to the Confederate flag. So that's the catch-22. That's the catch-22. Now, I'll give you another example. When I was debating with some white people, and I'm going to say it that way because I think oftentimes we need to make it clear who we're dialoguing with so that we can understand people's perspectives. So I'm dialoguing with some with a white guy that I went to high school with. He's a white conservative male, and he said that George Jefferson used the H word 21 times in one season. Now, first of all, I was curious to know how he knew 21 times in one season. It wasn't important enough for me to question him on that. But and he said George Jefferson uses the H word 21 times in one season, but they pulled the Dukes of Hazzard off there. And I thought that was a stupid analogy, just stupid. It was a stupid analogy because we know that George Jefferson spun off of Archie Bunker. I was going to say he never saw George but Archie. And we know that All in the Family, you know, was one of the most racially insensitive shows that many of us love, and I watch it so regularly. But the most recent episode of All in the Family that I watched was less than 24 hours ago. I was watching it yesterday. I watch it.
I still love
All in the Family as much or more in some cases as the Jeffersons. You know, because I understand the satire.
Yeah, you get it more now.
And I get it. And I also know that in watching the Dukes of Hazzard, me personally, I can't speak to anybody else's opinion, but in my opinion, I never, ever saw anybody on that show any disrespect towards people of color. I just didn't. And I was pretty versed in the show.
That's why I'm wondering, why did they pull
the show because of the sensitivity of the Confederate flag. It's kind of like, did you remember when Kobe?
Bullshit.
You remember when Kobe? Well, yeah, but you remember a couple years ago when Kobe uttered the gay slur, the F word, on the bench under his breath. Nobody heard him, but the camera picked him mouthing the word, and they fined him a whole bunch of money because the LGBT community has a whole lot of power. And they didn't want no shit from them.
They didn't want to hear it.
So that's kind of that's kind of how I view this. And so you're not happy with it.
I mean, I'm not happy. I'm not sad. I like the Dukes of Hazzard. I find it hilarious watching Boss Hogg eat raw liver. But I just think it's BS to pull the show. Because now we've got this ruling with the piece of trap with the flag.
Right. Yeah.
So I just call it BS all this time. I mean, the meaning for the flag for whoever and whatever their meanings are, it hasn't changed since this show was on. Right. It hasn't changed.
Right.
So why all of a sudden now is it a big deal that you go ahead and you yank the show?
Right.
So I call bullshit on it.
Apparently for some it is a big deal. Cousin Terry's still listening. She says it was pulled in the name of equality and rights. She doesn't agree, but maybe TVLAND is making a point. If we pull one, we have to pull them all. Any show that had racial slur, defamatory, nuance, stereotype, or reference. Totally agree.
Okay.
100% totally agree. I think that it was knee-jerk.
Listen, as long as they leave I Love Lucy, I don't care.
Oh, God. Well, let me get some comments in. Roosevelt says that he enjoyed the Dukes of Hazzard as the show, but the symbol should be eradicated to modern culture except in the museum. Madrika says that she has two minds about this. She agrees the symbol should be in museums. However, even movies that have Nazi symbols are still viewed. That was a sign of the times. It's looking at movies from an early part of the last century and calling a grown black man boy or addressing him by his first name when that same black man was expected to call the person Mr. Was it right? No. However, that's how it was then. So I can understand that. Kathy has a very, very long quote, so I'm not going to read it all, but she says in part, the flag is a symbol that upsets many, shouldn't be flown in any government building, agree, but to erase it from culture is wrong. It was used for wrong purposes, but her generation changed the meaning, and it means change the meaning. The government's not going to dictate to her daily life, which is a rebel. To many of us, it's a symbol of pride. And she says more, but that's the gist of it. Let's see. Joe says that he's offended by everyone just looking for an excuse to be offended. We really need to stop being babies and always being offended by something. I would never even think of being offended by TV shows like Jeffersons or anything like that. Being from New Jersey, he couldn't care less about the Confederate flag. His family was from Sicily, Italy anyway. So that's his thought on it. Let's see, there's more here. Let me see if I can get any more comments in here. Kevin says it will remain impossible to have meaningful dialogue on the admittedly thorny issue until we move beyond the volatile and confusing context in which the media frames it. There is no real controversy here unless the conversation centers on how we feel. Then it's premium grist for mass media's distraction mill. Ryan says that he thinks America's full of shit, that flags meaning hasn't changed, and now all of a sudden the car is offensive. It's been cool since forever, and now 2015 it's a big deal. So a lot of good stuff, a lot of good comments in from everybody, and so we really appreciate you guys hanging in there and sending us those comments and getting all that stuff in there. And so I definitely get it. I understand why folks feel so strongly about it. Just in the interest of full disclosure, I will say one last time how I feel about the flag, and I'll go first and ask my co-host to go behind me, and then we'll move on to something else. To me, the flag is a symbol of hatred. It's a symbol of treason. It's a symbol of insurrection. It's a symbol of a bunch of people in the country who decided that they didn't want to be a part of the country anymore. They had their reasons. A big part of it was they wanted to keep slaves in slavery, and they decided that they were going to secede from the United States. And that was the flag that represented their plight. And so for those folks that tell me that it's a symbol of Southern pride and Southern heritage, that Southern pride and Southern heritage is a heritage of insurrection, treason, and slavery. And you will never find Jewish people allowing the mainstream to fly swastikas and all that kind of stuff in your face. They don't stand for it. And for anybody to fly that flag and tell me it's a symbol of Southern pride, that tells me a lot about you. Does that mean that I immediately think that you as an individual is a racist? No, because I want to trust that your heart and how you treat me is more likely to be what you're about. But I got to be honest with you. You're walking down the wrong path with me if you're supporting that flag. And that's just how I feel about it. My co-host, your thoughts?
It's very thin ice they're skating on when you find, I don't see how that's a symbol of pride. You might as well drop the damn mic, because you pretty much said it all. You said it for both you and I. And every time I see that flag, it's irritating to me. It's just hate. It's outright hate. All right? I don't see how it's a symbol of pride. Please show me what it is about that flag that says it's a symbol of Southern pride. What is it? Barbecuing pork, pulled pork sandwiches, that's what the flag means. What the hell shows pride for the flag? I don't see it. So please enlighten me with what the hell it is that you see, because I don't see it. The bullshit piece of rag is hate. And you know what? Pull it down. Yeah, I'm glad you pulled it down. Now I know some of y'all gonna go out there and find whatever the last damn bumper sticker it is you could put on your mother freaking car. Okay. But still, hate is hate, and I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care if you think people are looking for excuses to feel some kind of way. It's not excuse. It's not an excuse. It's a freaking fact. So there's no excuse when you outright tell people that you hate them. When you outright tell people this is your land or their space, man, kiss my sorry black ass. I'm done. That's how I feel about it.
Oh, okay. Tell us how you really feel. Let's see, because I got a suggestion from one of our listeners to see if the Dukes of Hazzard was really about hate. And oftentimes their songs is how we determine what the show is about. So take a listen to these lyrics and tell me what you think.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm. Beats all you never saw, been in trouble with the law since the day they was born. Straightening the curves, flattening the hills. Someday the mountain might get 'em, but the law never will. Making their way the only way they know how. That's just a little bit more than the law will allow. Just a good old boy, they wouldn't change if they could. Fighting the system like a true modern day Robin Hood.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I think the good old boys. I could see it now while you were singing.
I wasn't singing nothing. I wasn't singing nothing.
Breaking people out of jail.
I wasn't singing nothing. That wasn't
transport moonshine. No harm. Just good old boys. No harm.
Oh my goodness, I wasn't singing nothing. That wasn't
you was, and he was in his feelings singing that song, y'all.
No, I wasn't. I mean, why you got to bring up old stuff? Why you got to bring up old stuff, man?
It's not old. That just happened.
I mean, you act.
It's not 5 minutes old, baby. It's not old.
Well, for those folks who don't know, in the interest of full disclosure, Dukes of Hazzard was based on a movie. The movie was actually called Moon Runners. Moon Runners. So if you want to look up Moon Runners, that's what the Dukes of Hazzard was actually based on. Ain't no Steppin, Marcus J, live from the Den Legacy Internet Radio. Moving on from one set of problems to a individual problem.
Oh dear.
Donald Trump.
Oh dear.
Here's the question I want to ask.
Next wig.
Yeah. Here's a question I want to ask about Donald Trump. Because we talked about him last week. But one thing that we didn't ever really get to when we were talking about him last week was what it was he actually said. We talked about how he got dropped and all of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. We didn't talk about what he actually said. Mm-hmm. What his actual quote was. Mm-hmm. And basically what he said was that Mexicans were bringing rape and crime into America. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Rape and crime. Mm-hmm. Mexicans. Mm-hmm. Which is the reason why he's got backlash from those TV stations that dropped him and the businesses that are dropping their business with him. And you even have other folks who are running on the Republican side, not the Democrats, because you would expect them to be against him because he's a Democrat. Mm-hmm. But on the Republican side, allegedly he put a tweet out, about Jeb Bush's wife, and Jeb Bush and his wife not having no problem with Mexicans because she's Mexican and she must support them, or something crazy that he tweeted that he originally took down. And so, I mean, some would say that, why y'all talking about Donald Trump? Is it filler? It's not filler, because I really want to know, like, where did these people come from? Like, I get that we live in a country where you can say what you want. Mm-hmm. But do we live in a country where we really think this way about other people?
Yep. Sadly so.
Like, we really, really think this way about other people. Like, you got black people walking around thinking that, because I heard a lady on the radio on another show, and you got black people walking around thinking that white people are devils and that they're all racist and that every single one of them wants to see you in a jail cell. Never mind, they didn't turn the TV on and see that a lot of these rallies, that half the people out there are white. You got white people walking around thinking that every single black person wants to steal their purse, or every single black person has either been in jail or will go to jail. And you got Donald Trump saying that Mexicans are going to bring crime and rape into America. Oh, never mind, you got 21-year-olds walking up in churches and shooting shit out of people. Never mind, you got crazy people going into movie theaters shooting shit out of people, white people. Never mind, we did a story on this show last week that said that domestic terrorists are white supremacists, and that is the biggest threat in this country. But he worrying about Mexicans?
This is what happens when you get a little bit too big for your britches, as my mama says.
Well, tell me more about what Mama says, because she always right.
She is, and I believe she texted me and told me she was listening. So, hey,
she heard me
Mama.
Cuss?
Yeah, I think she did. She heard you cuss.
My bad.
She probably heard me cuss too.
Yeah,
and
because you
she's
said
probably
worse stuff
saying
than
a
me.
few choice words too, but her words we can't air.
Oh.
But I think that he's in the position to believe, hey, I've got X amount of dollars. I own X, 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 and Y. I can say what I want. I'm running for this. I'm a big man on campus. So he feels he could say whatever he likes. And granted, yeah, this is a place where we can say what we like. But let's use a little bit of common sense and think first. Because the first thing you're going to do is, if you say you want to run for president, and I'm going to use the term loosely, you need votes, right?
Yes.
So I'm wondering how many Mexicans are going to vote now?
Well, from what I understand, they are the largest growing demographic in America. So I would think that it would be unwise to alienate them. That's just,
you might want to think first.
I ain't a billionaire, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn once. I'm not a dummy, and I realize that they are not the group of people to be freaking alienated.
You want to still go do that? So this little thing that he's doing now for publicity, whatever the hell it is he's got going, it's going to die down. He's going to realize, and sadly enough, I don't think there's ever going to come an apology, whether he means it or not.
Oh, he's already doubled down on those statements.
Okay,
he's already doubled down.
No,
ain't no Steppin, Marcus J, live from the Den Legacy
Lord
Internet
Jesus,
Radio. Continuing in stupid conservative news, I'm getting this one from rawstory.com. This is an ex-candidate who plotted Muslim massacre released by judge because he isn't sure that he's a true threat. I'm showing you the photo. A federal judge scuttled a plea agreement reached between prosecutors and attorneys for a former congressional candidate who plotted to massacre Muslims in a community identified by conservative media as a terrorist training camp. Robert Rankin Doggett pleaded guilty in May to one count of interstate communication of threats and faced up to 5 years in prison. However, U.S. District Court Judge Curtis Collier ordered attorneys who worked out the plea agreement to show that Doggett's plot was actually, quote, true threat. The government has not shown by clear and convincing evidence defendants' release would pose an unreasonable danger to the community or any particular individuals. This is what the Judge Collier said. A federal magistrate then reversed earlier ruling and allowed the 63-year-old Doggett to go free until the case can be resolved. Investigators said Doggett, who ran as an independent last year for Tennessee's 4th congressional district seat, tried to recruit militia members to join his planned attack on a school and mosque in Hancock, New York. Doggett plotted the attack with several people, including an FBI informant, in recorded phone calls and discussed his plans in Facebook posts. Quote, when we meet in this state, the people we seek will know who we are, Doggett said in one recorded phone call. Continuing, we will be cruel to them and we will burn down their buildings. If anyone attempts to harm us in any way, our stand gunner will take them down from 350 yards. The standoff gunner would be me. Doggett, who had gathered an M4 rifle, explosive, and armor-piercing bullets, traveled to Greenville, South Carolina, there's South Carolina again, to meet with militia members to recruit gunners. If there's a gunfight, well, there's a gunfight, and I want to come home because I love my family, and I want to see my kids again, Doggett told the militia member. But I also understand that if it's necessary to die, then that's a good way to die. Collier gave attorneys 21 days, the judge gave him 21 days to file briefs that show whether the recorded threats and other evidence described in the plea agreement amounted to a true threat, which federal law requires under code. Again, as I normally say, there's more to it, but I think we have it set up. So let me get this straight. That's why I make sure that we understand this. This is a dude who is recorded saying that he wants to kill people, and he knew he was caught. His attorney worked out a deal with the prosecutor, and the judge says, nah, not sure it's a true threat. What you think about this?
Well, I just want to know two things. What the meaning of true threat is for the judge and what he's got on the judge. What did he say to the judge?
He must got naked pictures of him.
Because I'll be goddamn.
He must got naked pictures of him with, with men or children or something. I don't know.
How clear can you be? How clear can you be?
Let's see if we can get a good quote again. If there's a gunfight, well, there's a gunfight. And I want to come home because I love my family and I want to see my kids again.
Wait, who's the shooter? What?
We will be cruel to them and we will burn down their buildings. If anyone attempts to harm us in any way, our stand gunner will take them down from 350 yards.
Who's the stand gunner?
The stand-up gunner would be me. But there's no true threat. Now, for those people who don't think that there's privilege that goes around with certain aspects of our demographic, this is a prime example of privilege. You can call it white privilege, you can call it rich privilege, you can call it political privilege. I mean, take your pick. But, I mean, a federal judge has a dude who wants to massacre. Now, here's my question to you, S.Y. Is it because he wants to massacre Muslims? Do you think that plays into it? Or do you think that it's more about him being a I shouldn't say conservative because he did run as an independent, but is it because he's a political figure, is a white male political figure, or is it because anybody plotted to kill Muslims?
It's because he wants to kill the Muslims.
It's the Muslims aspect?
Yes, that's what I believe. That's what I feel. That is what I feel. Yes. Come on.
Muslims.
Come on. If he was going to take out the judge and the judge's family and everybody at the judge's family picnic and whatever down the judge's family tree, then we'd have a problem. But it don't really affect the judge none, and, they black anyway. So hell.
They black anyway.
You know, just go ahead.
The Muslims, they black?
They may be.
Well, I mean, we know that the Middle East
Right.
are, you know, if
They not white.
if we're to say that, if we're speaking of Muslims being from the Middle East, I would say that that's accurate. Many would disagree with me, but I would say that that's accurate, you know, especially when you're talking about historically. No one wants to give Egypt credit for being in Africa, so I do get a kick out of that. Ain't no how Steppin with Marcus J. Live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. All right, last thing I want to get to is President Obama, who is now decided that he is going to commute nonviolent drug offenses in a move to reduce mass incarceration. He's trying to pare down the massive number of people serving long prison sentences for nonviolent drug-related offenses. So he's going to free dozens of federal prisoners in the coming weeks. I'm getting this from rawstory.com. While the president is expected to commute the sentences of roughly a total of 80 people soon, it's a small fraction of the 30,000 prisoners who apply for clemency. It's a part of a broader move to correct what many agree to be a national pattern of gross over-sentencing, thanks to years of tough-on-crime politicians who instituted mandatory minimum sentencing. The United States is obviously the world's largest jailer, according to statistics from the American Civil Liberties Union. With just 5% of the world's population, the United States has 25% of the world's prisons. One more time, with 5% of the world's population, the U.S. has 25% of the world's prison population. Since 1970, the United States prison population has shot up a whopping 700%. The crisis has been attributed to the war on drugs, which is now broadly seen as a failure in a mandatory minimum sentencing. Author and attorney and activist Michelle Alexander has pointed out that mass incarceration disproportionately affects men of color. The author of the paradigm-shifting book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness, said that more black men were in the clutches of the criminal system in modern times than were enslaved in 1850. In a candid interview with The Wire creator David Simon, Obama and the former Baltimore Sun crime reporter discussed the failings of the criminal justice system and the need for change. A massive trend towards incarceration, even of nonviolent drug offenders. I saw this from the perspective of a state legislator, is what Obama said. This just explosion of incarceration, disproportionately African American and Latino. The challenge, which you depict in your show, folks go in great expense to state, many times trained to become more hardened criminals while in prison, come out and are basically unemployable. End quote. Co-host, what you think about this this move by the president? You seem to be troubled. It looks
I'm
like
a little troubled with
it looks
this
like you.
one.
Yeah, it looks like you got some mixed feelings. So
I definitely am cross with that one.
let's talk about it.
If somebody goes to jail, you know, maybe, you know, I'm just trying to help mama pay a bill, you know, help mama survive or what have you. For whatever reason, they got caught with the goods and they went to jail. Okay, maybe that's good for them, that, you know, maybe there's a lesson learned here and they can come out. Maybe the time was just too harsh, but maybe somebody went and they just didn't get caught for what they would have done, you know, and that's the part that scares me. And now in jail, going to your last quote, in jail, you know, you've got to, I guess you got to kind of learn how to survive. You know, they're going to come out. They're going to have difficulty being employed. It may lead to a little bit more, you know, and that scares me. So I'm a little mixed on that. That definitely requires me to sleep on that. You know, again, it's really good for the kid who was just trying to help and it just was not your time to try to help. And maybe you did learn your lesson and maybe you're not going to do it again. And, you know, whatever, you'll come and you'll be a great asset to society at this point. Then maybe again, you know.
Well, look at it.
Not.
Look at it this way. If the president is expected to pardon or have released 80 people out of 30,000, I think, and this is my opinion, that it would be a fair assumption that they have gone through a very stringent vetting process of who would be these people who are going to be released. Would you agree? And so 80 out of 30,000.
I would agree that you know, some thought went into who we're picking. Yes, I would agree to that. But we all make a mistake. We all make mistakes. And maybe one is not good. Maybe two is a threat. You know, your mentality changes, I'm sure, when you're behind bars. And who knows how long they've been there.
Right.
You know, your mentality changes. And how do you feel now about survival?
Right.
You know, that makes me a little nervous.
Well, that percentage is less than.
It's very small.
Yeah, we just did the math. I mean, it's less than 1%. You know, that he's going to pardon. So of the people who applied, me personally, I mean, I have no problem with the pardon because I understand that, you know, the criminal justice system in our country is a business. You know, with private prisons, they make money. You know, and, you know, I know someone personally who is being held without a trial, you know, and they're making money off of this person. He's being held without a trial. And there's money being made, you know, here. And, you know, so why, you know, aren't we supposed to get a speedy trial in this country? Where am I going with that? You know, I don't need to get into what the specifics of this person's situation is, but as far as the criminal justice system and these people being incarcerated, if this person was a nonviolent offender, which I won't say if they are or not, but if they are, then they're making money off of somebody who hasn't even done a violent crime. You know, you can argue that selling drug offenses, you know, eventually leads to violence. That's a fair argument to make. But, you know, with the criminal justice system being the way it is and the amount of people that are being incarcerated, wouldn't it be a better way to try to rehabilitate these people and feed them back to society as real people, as opposed to building a culture of prisons in our country? And here's the reason why. Let's say that these people do their full terms. Some of them getting, like, they was given time out like it was candy, man, 10, 20 years. So you take an 18-year-old and you put an 18-year-old in jail for 10 years. He comes out, he's 28 years old. We know that 18 to 22 is the prime college years. He missed that. You know, 22 to 28 is when you're going to get your master's and your doctorate. Missed that too. So you come out of jail at 28, 10 years older than you were when you graduated high school, and you missed everything that you're supposed to learn after that. So now you hit the street. You don't have the first 10 years of the adult skills that you would have learned if you were on the street. And now you come out, you can't find a real job, and now you resort to a life of crime. Then now you are adding to the recidivism rate. Now, I'm not absolving you of wrongdoing, because you shouldn't have done what got you there to begin with. But what I'm saying is, ultimately, if prison was supposed to rehabilitate you, shouldn't there be some sort of way that we turn these people back into productive citizens? Because ultimately, my taxes are high because we got all of these prisons. That's part of it, obviously. I mean, what do you think? I mean, man, am I reaching?
You know, no, I don't think you're reaching. But, you know, when you say that, I wonder if his selection for these 80 people, were they in some type of rehabilitation program? You know, not everyone in the prison can go through it. So, you know, were they in some type of program? Did they, you know, go to school? Did they, you know, learn this? Are they doing that? Are they helping others? You know, what makes them, you know, a contributor to society now when they come out? So, I don't know. I guess you may be right a little bit.
I've known to be right a little bit every once in a while. You know,
like I said, I'm just a little, it makes me nervous. It makes me nervous. And for us, I mean, for me rather, it's not to say that the 80 people live around the corner from me. None of them may be nowhere near me.
Right.
You know, but I just wonder, you know, and any number of these 80, are they going to do something?
Right.
And go back where they came from.
Yeah, I mean, it's 80 out of 30,000,
scary.
and we also know there are large numbers of people who are in jail who shouldn't be.
Who shouldn't be in there.
You know, I have no problem with the pardons, and we'll see what happens, and we'll see how it works.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna
keep our eyes
look up on that one. Yeah, keep on that one.
You know, I have Steppin, Marcus J, live from the Den, Legacy Internet Radio. We're gonna take a break. Be back.